In our last video of our demo reel series, we spoke about some of the things you should put on your demo reel, but we weren't able to cover everything. So in this video, we're going to talk about what kind of things you should put on your reel if you want to get into the VFX industry. And some of these tips will also apply in gaming reels, which we'll get to in another video. If you have any other thoughts, suggestions, or advice, please drop them in the comments below. If you want to pursue or transition into a career in visual effects, what kind of things do recruiters and animation directors want to see on your reel? In one of our animation industry Q&A streams, Agora Studio CEO David Hubert and community co-founder Brent George answered this very question.
I would probably want to see a pretty solid quadruped animation in there, a dog, a lion, a cat, whatever. Having maybe a monkey that goes from on 4 to on 2, so it kind of show this transition. Seeing a flying and maybe two different one, a super heavy dragon and then a small bird. And then I would say probably just a complicated creature to animate. Maybe it's tentacles, maybe it's a mix of, big tail with secondary motion, just basically something that is like, okay, you need to deal with the physics of the mass, and then you need to deal with the wings, but they're one of those wings that are broken, and there's those tentacles here and there. So basically something that looks complicated to animate and that is well executed, which shows that, okay, you're able to process information in a way that even those complicated tasks, you can deal with them.
For sure, one of the things you were going to want to put on there is something that it feels non-traditional. Like think outside the box and do something crazy. Like the tentacle monster is a really good example of that, and that makes me shiver just thinking about it because I really hate animating tentacles. Matter of fact, I don't think I know an animator that actually does, because they're a pain in the ass, right? Like it's like, oh, it's the ultimate question, FK or IK. Well, I got some news for you. You're going to need both because there's no way you're going to survive the shot otherwise. And it's like, both? How do you? What? I don't even. So yeah, I've been there. It's not fun, and it can be pretty complicated, and you usually need a series of usually some scripts and tools to make your life a little bit easier to manage a scene like that, and which is so at the end of the day, it shows your ingenuity as to how to tackle it technically, but it also shows how you can actually transpose things you understand about the way movement works. I'm very curious to see how you conquer a problem like that. But I would also say you should put in some of the sort of the staple stuff that David said too, because I mean that makes it easy to be like, okay, I'm interested, because you check the boxes. It says that you do the thing. You're going to be able to do the things that you more often are going to need to do. But then to really put you on the top, I'm going to be curious as to what are you going to do? What are you going to show me to separate yourself from the pack?
Now, to capture realistic performances for VFX animation, studios sometimes rely heavily on a motion captured performance. Simplified, in motion capture, or mocap for short, a suit with motion sensors is worn by an actor and sends information back to the computer, capturing how the body is moving onto a 3D skeleton. This data is then cleaned up in the software of choice and applied to the 3D character. If you really want to stand out with your VFX demo reel, showing only the final product of your motion capture cleanup isn't enough. In an animation review submitted by one of our community members, Brent George gave some great advice on how you should present mocap animation on your reel.
I'm going to stress something that I tell all my motion capture students. I get a lot of motion capture work on demo reels, and it doesn't get properly called out. If she were to put this on her reel all by just like this, I wouldn't be very impressed, because I would be, looking at it thinking, what did she do? I don't really know what she did. So one of the things I teach in my motion capture class over at iAnimate, what I'm telling everybody is to showcase the motion capture work in a different way. To think like a VFX artist, to be able to break down the work and reveal what you started with. The classic, here's a bunch of characters on a green screen, and then a transition happens and the green screen's gone, and then there's like a kind of a rough matte painting, and then there's some color correction sort of things that happen, and like a shadow layer, some VFX and some atmosphere, a bunch of things kind of just get added to the shot, sort of pass after pass. And what you get is a delta. The audience that's watching this is impressed because they saw what it was and what it ended up being. And so just make sure that you do package this up in some way. I have some suspicions on where the clips were and where the blends are happening, but that you're going to want to make sure that everyone can clearly see what was done, what you started with, and what you ended up having to do to it.
Visual effects animation is all about convincing your audience that the characters you are seeing on the screen exist in a real-world environment. A high level of understanding of the way creatures, humans, and even machines move is necessary. We want to leave you with one final tip on where you can find great resources for learning more about visual effects and creature animation. This tip is from Marco Folia, animation supervisor from Agora Studio, and we recently released it as one of our many quick tips.
There's a biologist, his name is Stuart Sumida, and he has a lot of talks on how they based fantasy creatures off real creatures. He used to consult more on animated films back in the day, realistic animals, but also creature stuff. So try to look him up and see if he has any stuff on YouTube. That's as far as kind of fantasy creatures, but try to look for fantasy creatures based on real life, that kind of stuff. Look at making of games like Monster Hunter or whatever and see what kind of research they might have done. Another thing that's really good too is there's this thing called the Animator Airtable. This has a lot of resources, including there's a whole bunch on animals. This is a great blog that it's linked to from Brendan Bodie and how birds fly, or it's got a lot of good resources here, documentaries on certain animals, and you'll get a lot of stuff that you could see the motion, but that would be the main suggestion is practice and try to learn real animals first.
If you're new to the channel, we post weekly advice from our animation experts to help you take your career and skills to the next level. You can also see how the pros animate their shots in animation breakdowns from frame-by-frame animation, and when you're ready, you can put your newfound skills to the test in our monthly Anim Challenge. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to these channels or follow us on social media so you don't miss out on some amazing advice. We hope you got some great ideas out of this video, and if we left anything out, please drop us your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Until next time, stay tuned and stay animated.